There comes a moment when a village story stops being only a village story. It's the moment when someone far higher up begins to ask questions. For Castelpetroso, that moment came early. The news of the apparitions and of the water from the spring did not stop at the borders of Molise. It rose, village by village, newspaper by newspaper, and it reached all the way to Rome. My name is Danny Cicchino, and this is the Little Lourdes of Italy. Today, we talk about what happened when Rome began to look toward Castelpetroso, and how that gaze lasted for years, patient and rigorous. In the previous episodes, we followed this story from the ground up. The two women on the mountain, the skeptical parish priest Don Achille Ferrara, the water from the spring, the first healing and the first conversions. But at the end of the 19th century, the Church was cautious with reports of apparitions, and rightly so. It did not pronounce easily. It verified, it waited, it sent someone to look with their own eyes before saying a single word. And when word of Castelpetroso reached Rome, it was precisely this patient machinery that began to turn. It began almost by chance. In the first days of September 1888, the Bishop of Boiano, Monsignor Francesco Macarone-Palmieri, was in Rome on diocesan business. During a visit to Cardinal Mariano Rampolla del Tindaro, Secretary of State to Leo XIII, the conversation turned to the events of Castelpetroso. The Cardinal wanted to know the details, and then, with great courtesy, he said something the bishop had not expected. The Holy Father wishes to see you, to be informed himself. The next day, the bishop was received in audience by Leo XIII. Kneeling at his feet, he recounted everything in detail. The apparitions, the sworn testimonies, the inquiry he had already opened in his diocese. And he added that, for fuller confirmation, he wished the Virgin might work some further sign. The Pope answered him with a line worth remembering. He said in essence, "And these things you tell me, are they not already wonders and miracles?" Then he sent him off with a precise charge. "Return to the place and let me know the further results." A conversation born almost by accident had become a mandate. The bishop was going home, no longer simply as the shepherd of his diocese, but as a man charged by the Pope to look and to report. And here, the story takes a turn the bishop could not have foreseen. Obedient to the Pope's command on September 26, 1888, Monsignor Macarone-Palmieri left Boiano and went to Castelpetroso, accompanied by the archpriest of the cathedral, by Don Achille Ferrara, and by other priests. He reached the rock around midday. Among the pilgrims. His first act was that of an investigator, not a devotee. He had a lit candle brought to him and pushed it into the clefts into the rock to make sure with his own eyes that there was no trick, no hidden deception. He looked for a long time in silence. Then, To the anxious questions of those present, he raised his head and said he had seen the Madonna twice, but indistinctly. He looked again, and at that moment those who were there recount the candles suddenly went out, and the grotto blazed with most vivid light. In the field of light, the bishop saw Our Lady of Sorrows clearly, 7 swords piercing her breast, a transparent veil covering half her face, all suffused with grief. When the vision faded, the bishop's cheeks were streaked with tears. The man sent to verify had become himself a witness. From the moment, the bishop acted as a delegate to the Holy See. 2 days later, on September 28, 1888, he wrote to Leo XIII to give an account of the visit he had made. As the Pope had asked him of him, the diocesan inquiry continued for months more. Depositions, witnesses, visionaries called to swear. It concluded at the end of the year. And on December 18, 1888, the bishop returned to Rome in person to deliver to the Pope, with his own hands, the entire body of documentation, the acts of process, the reports, his own testimony. By the beginning of 1889, those papers were in the hands of Leo XIII. Meanwhile, in Castelpetroso, something concrete was taking shape. In February 1889, a committee was formed to build the church on the site of the apparitions. A committee the bishop himself agreed to lead. On February 20th, 1889, he gave notice of it to the Pope. The reply came in the form of a telegram signed by Cardinal Rampolla, and it was published in Il Servo di Maria on March 9, 1889. It read, "To the Bishop of Boiano, the Holy Father learned with satisfaction of the resolution taken by the committee to build the church, and imparts his apostolic blessing to you, to the committee, and to the donors. Cardinal Rampolla." A few lines, but for a village in Molise, those few lines meant everything. They meant that the Pope of Rome was watching, and that he approved. Castelpetroso was no longer only Castelpetroso. It had entered a story for greater than its own. But Rome was not content with this bishop's words. This is the thing that struck me the most. Studying this story, the Holy See wanted to see clearly for itself the document of a country prelate, however sincere, were not enough. Rome sent its own men. In September 1889, a young Monsignor of the Secretariat of State arrived in Castelpetroso, Giacomo della Chiesa. He traveled by train as far as Campobasso, and from there, by the heavy horse-drawn postal coach, he reached the village and went to the Sacred Rock. It was a name that meant nothing to anyone then, but 20 years later, the young man would become Pope, taking the name Benedict XV. The man who would lead the church through the First World War and who would call that war a useless slaughter. As a young man, he had been sent to look at what was happening on the mountain in Molise. A few months later, in December 1889, a second mission arrived, and this one scientific in character. Father Giuseppe Lais, Deputy Director of the Vatican Observatory, went to the rock together with Father Morini, a distinguished philologist and one of the most learned priests of the Order of the Servants of Mary. Lais measured the small clefts in the rock with precision, examining everything with the eye of a man of science. Rome did not trust in faith alone. It wanted the numbers, the measurements, the facts. There is a human detail that captures those ears. The papal inspection stirred unease among those promoting the devotion at Castelpetroso. They understood that the Holy See was examining everything with the utmost rigor. And the rigor could also lead to measures of caution. And so, in December 1889, Bishop Macarone-Palmieri and Carlo Acquaderni, the publisher from Bologna we'll meet in the next episode, decided to travel together to Rome to inform the Secretary of State in person about the events of Castelpetroso. And Rome's gaze did not close even then. A year later, on December 16, 1890, the Holy Office wrote to the bishop once more. The Pope wished for a full and accurate report on all the events of Castelpetroso. A second request, a sign that, in Rome, no one had stopped watching. And this, perhaps, is the most beautiful thing in the whole affair. Not the rush to proclaim a miracle, but the patience to verify it, year after year, envoy after envoy, letter after letter. The Church did not hurry. It looked, and the more it looked, the more the story of Castelpetroso held. In the next episode, we'll return to Bologna and meet up close with the man we've just named, Carlo Acquaderni, a publisher, his son Augusto, and a bottle of water that traveled from Molise, a story that binds Bologna and Castelpetroso together forever. I am Danny Cicchino, and this is the Little Lourdes of Italy, Shrine of Our Lady of Sorrows. Thank you for being here with me, and if this story speaks to you, follow the Little Lourdes of Italy on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, so you will not miss what comes next. We'll see you in the next episode.